Today's story is about a little girl who just wanted someone to stay, and the woman who chose to never walk away. Let's begin. The grandfather clock in the living room struck 11, its chimes echoing through the glass-paneled walls of the Manhattan penthouse. The soft golden lighting offered a sense of calm, but there was an unmistakable chill in the air, the kind that lingers in a home where warmth has been missing for too long. Emily Adams gently closed the leather-bound storybook in her lap. She glanced at Sophie Carter, just 5 years old, fighting off sleep with the stubbornness only a child could manage. Her sleepy brown eyes remained wide open, arms wrapped tightly around a worn-out teddy bear. "Just one more story," Sophie whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I want to wait for Daddy." Emily paused. She had heard that line many times in the 6 months she'd worked here. Ryan Carter, Sophie's father, was the powerful CEO of Carter Industries, charming, brilliant, endlessly busy, and almost never home before midnight. "Your bedtime was a while ago," Emily said softly, brushing back Sophie's soft curls. "We should head back to your room now." "I just want to hear him say goodnight," Sophie murmured, her lower lip trembling. "Like he used to, when Mommy was still here." Emily's chest tightened. Sophie rarely spoke of her mother, the woman who had walked out on them one cold morning 3 years ago without a word. That sentence, coming from a 5-year-old, cut deeper than it should have. "All right," Emily found herself saying, against her better judgment. "We'll wait a little while longer. But only until you fall asleep, okay?" Sophie's face lit up instantly. She nestled deeper into her father's enormous bed, clutching her teddy bear like it was the last piece holding her world together. A quiet hope lingered in the room, fragile but undeniably present. The soft click of the front door echoed through the stillness of the penthouse. Ryan Carter stepped inside, shrugging off his coat and loosening his tie, the quiet hush of his shoes muffled by the thick carpet. Another day of back-to-back meetings had drained him, but for some reason, he didn't head straight to his bedroom like he usually did. As he approached the hallway, Ryan paused. A faint glow spilled from beneath the cracked door of his room. He nudged it open gently and stopped in his tracks. Emily was lying on his bed, turned slightly toward Sophie, who was curled up next to her. The little girl was fast asleep, her small hand gripping the edge of Emily's sleeve. Her face was calm in a way he hadn't seen in months. No restless tossing, no midnight tears. He stood still, saying nothing. Not a word of reprimand, not a single step forward. His eyes simply stayed on the image before him, his daughter, and the young woman who had somehow given her the peace he no longer knew how to provide. Ryan exhaled slowly. He had spent the day closing deals worth millions, leading an empire, yet this moment made him feel incredibly small. For the first time in months, the apartment felt alive, filled with the quiet pulse of something he hadn't allowed himself to need. Soft morning light filtered through the tall windows, casting a pale gold hue across the crisp white sheets. Emily stirred first. Her breath caught as she realized she was still on Ryan's bed, with Sophie curled beside her, still asleep, her tiny hand clutching the hem of Emily's shirt as if afraid to let go. Carefully, Emily slipped out of bed, her heart pounding. Had she crossed a line? Would he fire her? She tiptoed out of the room and stopped dead in her tracks. Ryan was standing by the glass railing in the living room, coffee in hand, staring out over the Manhattan skyline. At the sound of her footsteps, he turned. A moment of tension passed between them. "She slept better than she has in a long time," Ryan said first, his voice low and rough with fatigue. "I haven't seen her that peaceful in months." Emily swallowed. "I'm sorry I stayed. I just couldn't bear to see her so upset." "You don't need to apologize," Ryan said quietly. "Thank you for staying with her." They sat down together on the window-side sofa. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful. Then words started to trickle out. Emily told him about her own childhood, how her mother had left when she was little, and how the emptiness never quite went away. That's why she couldn't walk Sophie back to her room last night. She knew what it felt like to be left waiting. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I thought I could make up for what she lost by giving her a future." But maybe what she really needs is the present. Something shifted between them then, quietly, gently, not defined by words but by understanding, by the way they both sat a little closer, breathed a little deeper. A bond was forming, one built not on obligation but on something far more rare, empathy. In the days following that morning conversation, the atmosphere in the penthouse seemed to shift. Nothing obvious, nothing loud, but it felt warmer. Ryan started coming home a little earlier, sometimes joining dinner, listening to Sophie talk about school, or quietly watching her sleep from the doorway. Emily didn't ask, she was simply there, cooking meals, helping with homework, and assisting Sophie with something special coming up, her first science fair. The two of them created a papier-mâché volcano. Emily guided Sophie step by step, but let the little girl do most of it, so she could feel it was truly her own. Ryan occasionally caught sight of them in the kitchen, flour and vinegar spilled across the counter, Sophie's laughter echoing in a space once filled only with silence. The science fair day arrived. The elementary school was busier than usual. Emily held Sophie's hand as they walked past the display tables. The girl wore a sky blue dress, her lucky one, and held the volcano as if it were treasure. "Do you think Daddy will come?" Sophie mumbled, not looking up. Emily squeezed her hand gently. "Let's believe in good things, okay?" 2:55 p.m. Sophie glanced at the door every time it creaked open, and then Ryan appeared. He wore a dark shirt, tie loosened, breath a bit rushed, but his eyes focused only on one person, Sophie. "Daddy!" Sophie shouted, rushing into his arms. After that, the little girl presented her project to the judges. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steadier. Ryan and Emily stood side by side, their eyes following her with a shared look, one of pride and love. Two parallel lines, finally meeting at one point. That evening, the three of them went out for ice cream. No one said the word family, but somehow they all knew they were slowly becoming one. A scream echoed from Sophie's room in the stillness of the night, jolting Emily awake in an instant. She didn't hesitate, rushing straight to the half-closed door. "Sophie," Emily called softly, pushing it open. The little girl was curled up under the blanket, her whole body trembling, breath shallow and broken, tears streaming down her cheeks. Don't go. Please don't leave me." Emily rushed to her bedside, sat down and wrapped Sophie in her arms. "It's okay, I'm here," she whispered, keeping her voice as gentle as possible. "It was just a dream. Breathe with me, okay? Like we practiced." She began to inhale slowly, then exhale evenly. Despite the panic, Sophie tried to follow. After a few breaths, her sobs began to soften. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. No one is leaving you." Sophie looked up, eyes red and glassy. I'm scared Daddy will leave too, like Mommy did." Emily froze for a moment. Her heart clenched painfully. She held the girl tighter. "Your dad loves you more than anything. You never have to be afraid of that, okay?" Out in the hallway, Ryan stood motionless. He'd only meant to get a glass of water, but Sophie's cry had stopped him in his tracks. He heard every word, every sob, every pain his daughter never dared voice when he was near. His hand clenched at his side, eyes fixed on the silhouette of the woman holding his daughter in the soft light. Tonight, for the first time, he truly understood. Sophie didn't just need a father, she needed presence. She needed him, here, now, fully. 3 days after Sophie's night panic, a large yellow envelope was delivered to the legal office of Carter Industries. Ryan was in the middle of a meeting when his assistant leaned in and whispered, "It's from family court." He left the boardroom immediately. In his private office, Ryan opened the envelope, and as his eyes landed on the first line, his breath caught. Petition to modify custody, filed by Olivia Hart. Olivia, the woman who had vanished without a word 3 years ago, was back, demanding full custody. She claimed Ryan was unfit due to his demanding job, an unstable home environment, and an unreasonable reliance on a nanny without formal training in child psychology. Ryan gripped the document, his eyes darkening. Anger flared, but underneath that, fear. Olivia was Sophie's biological mother, and the law sometimes favored names on paper over hearts that stayed. That evening, Ryan told Emily in the small kitchen after Sophie had gone to bed. Emily sat frozen, her hands clenched around her teacup. "She has no right," Emily breathed. "Emotionally, no," Ryan said, his eyes distant. "But legally, she might." "So what now?" Ryan turned to her, long, directly, no exhaustion hidden. "We're not letting anyone take Sophie, not when she's just started smiling again." Emily swallowed hard. "I don't want to lose her." "We won't." Ryan stepped closer, his hand gently covering hers. "Not as long as I'm breathing." Neither of them said another word, but in their eyes, something had become unmistakably clear. They were no longer alone. This wasn't just Ryan's battle. This was a fight for all three of them. The small family courtroom was uncomfortably quiet. Ryan sat at one side of the long table, Emily beside him, their hands not touching but always close. Across from them sat Olivia, dressed in a pale dress, her eyes never leaving Sophie, who was seated in the middle of the room, on a special chair for child witnesses. The judge, a middle-aged woman, spoke gently but firmly. "Sophie, do you know why we're here today?" Sophie nodded, eyes cast down at her hands resting on her dress. "Then can you tell me who you'd like to live with?" Olivia leaned forward, putting on the softest smile she could manage. "Sophie, I know I've been gone, but I promise. I'll make it all up to you. We can start fresh, just the two of us, like before." Sophie looked at Olivia. Then she turned to Ryan and to Emily, who had been quietly watching her from the start. "Daddy never promises things he can't keep," Sophie said softly. "Miss Emily isn't my mom, but she always stays, even when I cry or get mad." Silence fell over the room. "I want to stay with Daddy and Miss Emily," Sophie said again, a little louder. "I don't want anyone to leave me anymore." Ryan lowered his head, eyes shut tight as if holding back a flood of emotion. Emily's tears fell, but they were tears of relief. The judge nodded gently. Olivia froze, her lips trembling, but said nothing. Sophie stepped down from the chair and ran straight into her father's arms. Ryan held her tight. A second pair of arms, Emily's, wrapped around them both. For the first time, they didn't need to argue. Didn't need proof, just the choice of a child and the love that made that choice undeniably right. Olivia didn't appeal. 2 days after the hearing, her lawyer informed them she would withdraw all legal action and leave New York. No farewell call, no message left behind. And strangely, that brought more relief than pain. That afternoon, Ryan drove Emily and Sophie home. In the car, not much was said. Sophie clutched her worn-out teddy bear, occasionally glancing into the rearview mirror, where Ryan and Emily's eyes met now and then, exchanging quiet smiles. The penthouse welcomed them with soft evening light and the scent of cookies Emily had baked earlier. The place no longer felt distant, it felt like home. Sophie kicked off her shoes, ran barefoot across the living room, laughing freely. Ryan set his keys on the table and turned to Emily, his gaze free from the guarded look he once wore. He didn't say much, just stepped closer and gently touched her hand. "Thank you," he said, voice low and genuine. Emily didn't ask what for, she simply nodded. In that moment, everything unsaid was already understood. That evening, they had dinner in the kitchen, not at the grand table, no formalities, just the three of them. A small table, a simple pasta meal, and Sophie's laughter ringing like the soundtrack of a new beginning. It was a gentle Saturday afternoon, the kind that seemed to pause time itself. The lavender fields just outside New York stretched endlessly, their soft purple petals swaying in the breeze, releasing a scent so calming it felt like breathing in quiet. On a pale picnic blanket in the middle of the flowers, Sophie lay on her stomach, humming a little tune, her brown hair tousled by the wind. Emily sat beside her, smoothing out the edges of the blanket, while Ryan carefully sliced apples, eyes quietly watching them both, as if afraid the moment might slip away if he blinked. After a while, he called gently, "Sophie, come here, sweetheart." The little girl looked up and ran into his lap. Ryan placed a steady hand on her shoulder, took a deep breath, then smiled softly. What if Emily stayed with us? Forever? Sophie froze. The breeze kept blowing, but time seemed to still. Then, her face lit up like sunshine breaking through clouds. Really? I'd love that. I've always wanted that. Ryan looked at Emily, really looked. For a man who had once built walls so high no one could climb in, this moment felt like tearing them down with bare hands. I don't just want you to stay, he said, voice low, raw. I want to build something real with you. Will you stay? Forever? Emily's breath hitched. Her chest rose, eyes glossy. Yes, she whispered. I want that. So much. Ryan pulled her into his arms, and Sophie wrapped hers around both of them. In the heart of the lavender fields, 3 hearts beat as one. A month later, the wedding took place in the small garden behind their home. Sophie, dressed in white, proudly walked beside her mom as the tiniest bridesmaid. Emily walked down an aisle scattered with petals, gripping a bouquet of lavender that carried the scent and the memory of that day. When the vows ended, Ryan leaned in and kissed her. Not loudly, not showy, but full of promise. Sophie rushed up and hugged them both, then looked up and asked, "Can I call her Mommy now?" Emily blinked, lips parting slightly, but words didn't come. Instead, her arms opened and Sophie rushed in. "I'd be the luckiest mommy in the world," Emily finally whispered, holding her close. Time passed not in leaps, but in quiet moments. The kind that built a life, 3 years later. In the sun-drenched garden, Sophie, now 8 and full of quiet confidence, held the hand of a tiny boy with golden curls and bright blue eyes. The two of them wandered between flower beds, giggling as they chased a ladybug, sharing a cookie between them. From the porch, Ryan stood behind Emily, his arms wrapped gently around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. They said nothing, just watched, together. "Do you think all the pain we went through led us here?" Emily asked softly. Ryan nodded, pressing a kiss into her hair. "If I had to live it all again, to find you, to find them, I would, 1,000 times over." And like that, in a garden blooming with laughter, sunlight, and second chances, a home had finally taken shape. Not from brick or wood, but from forgiveness, from staying, from love grown in loneliness and finally allowed to bloom. If this story made you smile, made you cry, or made you feel seen, don't forget to leave a little love below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button, because here, stories always find their way home.